All right, welcome back to the Roast It Yourself podcast, brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop. My name is Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me, as always, is Catherine Mansell, Certified Q Grader and Director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. Catherine, are you getting rain like we are here, or are you guys having a pretty dry, summery day?
I'm this is a typical New Orleans summer. Very, very hot, but it rains every day, which is unlike my very first summer here. My very first summer in 2023, it did not rain for 2.5 months, and I was unsure if I was going to make it. Now it's a typical summer, and we have lots of heat, but at least it rains every day. So
There you go.
I'm getting it now.
There you go. Yeah, that sounds awful. You and all the plants were having a hard time that summer, I take it. That's a hard way to be. Well, yeah, we're getting drenched over here. I'm actually sitting out on the patio. It's kind of nice to be here, get a little covered patio so I can enjoy rain without getting wet. It's the best of both worlds. But anyway, so each week we set aside about 10 minutes to field questions from home coffee roasters and professionals alike about roasting, tasting, and most importantly, enjoying coffee. Send your coffee questions to questions@riypod.com. That's questions@riypod.com to get a nice shout out from us, and of course to get your question answered in an upcoming episode. This week's question is from Pete in Michigan, who writes, I use a Fresh Roast 800 that I purchased from Current Crop. Shout out to Current Crop, awesome roaster. I use a Breville espresso machine. I'm wondering if I should be choosing my coffee for that purpose, I guess, meaning for espresso. Are there specific origins that I should be choosing? I really like my fast Americanos in the morning, and I don't go far beyond first crack in my roasting. Sort of cappuccino cortado in the afternoon. Absolute rookie here, but enjoying the hobby. Pete from Michigan. Well, Pete, thank you so much for the question. Catherine, what do you think about this? Should he be choosing a different origin or specific coffee for espresso, or should we think about this?
Well, I think it really depends on what you're looking for in your coffee. Are you looking for certain tasting notes? Are you looking more towards body? What exactly are you looking for? Because many people like different roast levels for espresso. They like a really thin body, a really full body. So when I think about it, I try to break it down regionally. Most of the time, I think South American coffees tend to be more chocolatey, somewhat nutty. Most African coffees are fruity, somewhat floral. Indonesians lean more towards earthy, dark chocolate, black pepper notes. For me, Central America is a mixed bag. Costa Ricans are very citrus forward. Guatemalans are very chocolate forward. So it really depends on what you're looking for in that espresso. I like something really funky and fruity on Monday, and then something really dark chocolate on Tuesday. So I like all of it. I like different roast levels. I like trying things that are really crisp, really tart. And then I go on the complete opposite spectrum, and I'll grab something and make it a really dark roast and pull a really full-bodied chocolatey shot. So I think it really depends on what you're looking for. I think a great place to start is South America, only because you can take South American coffees to a number of different roast levels, but still experience a really nice espresso. There's a coffee here that sells really well at Current Crop called the Brazil CHC Reserve Espresso. It says espresso in the name. That may be one of the reasons why it's one of our top sellers, but it's also really great for espresso. There's also one, Brazil Organic Natural Dutra is really fantastic. I think the tasting notes are chocolate and caramel. So that can be a really great place to start. So it really depends on what you like.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I know, I mean, you're bringing out Brazilian coffees in particular. I think they're great for espresso because they tend to be very full-bodied coffees. And one thing we like about espresso is that kind of full body flavor. Sometimes you'll get an espresso that feels very thin. And to me, even if the flavor is great, I kind of knock points off in my head if it feels thin, and I just perceive it to be weaker, and I don't
Yeah.
enjoy it as much. And it could be excellent, objectively speaking, but we're in this
Right.
because we get to make what we enjoy. And you're roasting coffee and
Yeah.
making your own espresso because you want to be able to like have the skill, but ultimately to be able to make what you want to make. And
Right.
so I think the Brazilian recommendation is excellent. South America, you just can't go wrong. It's very classic, and you can
Yeah.
do a lot of different. There's fruity notes there. There's chocolatey notes there. There's a lot of things
Hmm.
there. That being said, I want to make sure that we don't like give any information that makes people feel they're pigeonholed into one region, because especially now in kind of third wave coffee, specialty coffee culture, like espresso can be a very light roast. It can be a medium roast. It can be dark
Hmm.
roast. It can be from anywhere in the world. You can have a very fruity
Yeah.
Ethiopian espresso. You can have a very classic chocolatey, South American espresso. You can have, a very earthy, Indonesian espresso. And it just depends entirely upon what you want. So getting to know the different coffees, what they bring to the table will help a lot. Given that you're like an absolute rookie, according to your words, absolute rookie, then I would say once you feel that you've got the actual roasting technique down and you kind of know what you're doing, what to look for, I would experiment widely with espresso. The only thing is with espresso, it's more important to have more of a quantity because you're going to have to dial that coffee in, experiment with it, and see how to get the best shot out of it. If you just have like a half pound that you roast, less 15% or so, you roast that coffee, you don't have very much coffee left to do experimentation with. And so I would keep in mind with the fresh roast to do a couple of roasts back to back the same kind of way. And then see when you have that, you can dial the espresso in and still have coffee left over to enjoy.
Right.
It's definitely, it's a very temperamental brewing method, the espresso. And so if you think I'm just going to roast, a quarter of a pound of coffee and drink it as espresso, well, you're probably not going to drink very much of it as espresso because you're going to wind up having
Right.
to spend a lot to dial in. So that's something to consider as well. But I would say experiment in broad categories because you're a rookie. So I would find the best selling like Indonesian coffee, maybe like a Sumatra Mandailing, right? It's very well, very very big and popular Sumatran coffee. Get a Guatemalan coffee, get an Ethiopian coffee, and get a couple of pounds of each of those. And then
Hmm.
try them, and that way you have the time to work on the roast, but more importantly, dial in that espresso after you've got it, and then you see what these different regions in broad categories bring to the table. And that way, you're not just you don't pigeonhole yourself, and you don't just tend to think, oh well, any coffee that I get is going to taste roughly the same on espresso. They're not.
Right.
So yeah, I would say experiment widely and roast multiple roasts of each coffee back to back, and then just take good
Yeah.
notes. Take good notes. We always talk about that.
Can I tell you something
Please.
that I
Yeah.
did when I was trying to really learn different regions and different countries and to try to be able to pinpoint what I was drinking most of the time?
Mm-hmm.
I would drink only Guatemalan coffee for 2 weeks
Oh,
and
there
I
you
would
go.
switch and then drink only Ethiopian coffees for another 2 weeks. And then I would switch and just go through and figure out what the common denominator was, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and just keep
Oh, that's
on
great.
moving through to see
Did you
which one
drink
was my
the
favorite.
same coffee or just only Ethiopian coffees for 2 weeks? Like, did you drink the
Only
same
Ethiopian.
coffee? Okay, okay.
Uh, I think a couple of times it would be the same one. I think I maybe had like two or three that I would go through for the next 2 weeks. I was trying to work my way through Coffee Bean Corral's
Yeah,
extensive inventory and be able to say that I tasted everything, but
yeah,
I wanted to be able to pinpoint what I was drinking, so I would stick it out country
yeah.
by country every couple of weeks.
Oh, that's great. And they
Yeah.
roast so differently, especially Ethiopian beans are just they're so small, they roast
Mm-hmm.
differently, than your
Yeah.
South American beans, for example. So even figuring that out can be
Mm-hmm.
difficult. But
Yeah.
no, that's a great idea, and just look at it like this is we had the question from last week about AI, and I just want to say like this is about you learning a skill set and continuing to grow in that. And so any ways that we can try and get to the solution before we've actually figured out why the solution worked is not going to help us be better like coffee people, right? If you get the right answer but you don't know how you got it, right? Or if you just stumble upon an amazing coffee but you don't know why you like it or what you like about it, it's got limited value for you as a coffee person long term, as a roaster or as an espresso guy. So yeah, be systematic about it and try these things out. It's great advice, Catherine. I didn't do it that systematically. I just kind of went alphabetically through. Whenever I had optional, like I need to roast another something today. I just finished. I've got the roaster already hot. What can I do? And what was the last one I left off at? So that's how I got through our inventory roasting. It wasn't quite as systematic as yours, just alphabetical. But anyway, that would have been really smart of me to do country by country. I would have gotten a lot faster, I think. But yeah, you get out of this as much as you put into it, and so I think you're asking good questions, Pete, and yeah, keep rolling, keep going. But Catherine, have we closed the story on this? Have we said everything that could be said?
Never.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so listeners, that's where you come. This is your part of the show. We're starting your part now. This is it. You get to go into the comment section on whatever platform you found us in, on YouTube or whatever, and fill us in on what we missed in this question and things that would be useful for him to know. What origins do you think make the best espresso? Are you one of those people that's like all coffee tastes the same? Well, maybe keep that to yourself because they don't. But I mean, you can share it if you want to. But I mean, just get in there and share what you've learned, what you've gleaned. Have you done Catherine's country by country plan to learn how the coffees relate to one another within one country and one origin, and how they're different from other origins, what they have in common? Have you done that? Share that in the comments, because that's going to help this coffee podcast we've built grow and reach more people. That's how this stuff spreads online, is through folks engaging, liking, subscribing, and sharing this stuff. So please do all those things if you haven't already. We're excited to watch this podcast grow, but we can't do that without you. We also couldn't do it without the folks that handle our audio and video, graphic work for the podcast to make us look and sound good. Thank you so much for letting us do this and making it work. Remember, dear listener, to send any questions you have about coffee in general or coffee roasting in particular to questions@riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Thanks, Pete.